Today, you're going to meet an investor that has done hundreds, maybe even thousands of wholesale deals, but chose to get into the note business to build income and long-term wealth. Stay tuned. Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Note School TV, where we go live every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. And guys, we want you to do a couple of things for us. Number one, if you will, what you see here today. We have an amazing guest who is really going to kind of pull back the curtains on his business and what he has done in the real estate and the note space. And we want you to subscribe to the Note School TV channel, right? And then finally hit that bell notification so that you will get advance notice when we go live every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. And guys, we love to bring you amazing content every week, and that is what you expect from us as we move forward. And so guys, if you have any questions about what we do here at Note School and how to get more information, simply go to noteschool.com/TV, and that we can answer your questions via email. We can answer your questions. We can have somebody give you a call, but we love to hear from you. And guys, if you want to find out more about attending one of our Note School one-day classes, certainly again, noteschool.com/TV. So before we get into our guests today, and I bring on our fearless founder, Mr. Eddie Speed, we have the news. So here's the news as it stands this week. Guys, here's the big one. Fast rising mortgage rates are about to make the housing market even crazier. Wow. How could the housing market get any more crazy, right? So yes, interest rates are going up. The 30-year fixed rates are sitting at about 3.45 as of a couple of days ago. And Redfin did a survey and said, okay, what does this mean to people that are kind of in the market and looking to buy a home? 47% say that they are feel more urgency and feel like they need to go out and jump on that crazy bandwagon and get a house, even though the rates are rising and the prices are still going up. So more to come on that as we progress in the upcoming weeks. And then we do have, well, where are the best cities for real estate investment? Guys, I'm going to give you the top 10 real quick. Number one is Youngstown, Ohio. Yes, Youngstown is the number one city in the United States, according to DS News, for real estate investors, followed by number two, Detroit. Number three, Spring Hill, Florida, which is right up by Tampa. Pueblo, Colorado. Birmingham, Alabama. Cleveland, Ohio is number 6. Colorado Springs is number 7. Lehigh Acres, Florida is number 8. Palm Bay, up over by Melbourne, Florida, is number 9. And number 10 is Phoenix, Arizona. So guys, those, according to DS News for this week, those are the best cities to invest in the United States. So guys, we know that we certainly live in an interesting market. And there was a Chinese philosopher that once said, may you live in interesting times. And if you're in real estate, at this point in time, you are certainly living in interesting times. Well, that's it for the news this week. And next up, I am going to bring on our fearless founder, our chief visionary officer, and Eddie's going to introduce our guest, Mr. W. Eddie Speed.
Well, thank you, Joe. Today is a special day because it has a very special guest as my friend. If this guy, as the old saying goes, if this guy doesn't light your fire, your wood's wet. This is a young guy that has done some really impressive things in real estate, but added the note business in the middle of a busy business, and he's made it work really, really well. You guys, I want to welcome Seth Choate.
How you doing, Eddie?
How you doing, pal?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Wonderful. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Seth is from Oakdale, California. Oakdale, California. I may be one of the few people in the world that have ever been to Oakdale, unless you're from around that part of the world. But it's a cowboy town.
They call it the cowboy capital of the world.
They before Stephenville, Texas came along, I think that was a true statement.
Really?
More world champion cowboys lived in Oakdale than anywhere in the country. And as you know, I actually have some cowboy friends there, real cowboys.
Yeah. I talked to them a handful of times.
Yeah. And stunt guys and all kinds of stuff. They're the stunt guys in a lot of the famous shows that you see, the cowboy stunts. And anyway, they actually, a lot of those guys live in Oakdale. So you live right in the middle of them. I met Seth, I would say, Seth, I met you about 4 years ago, or was it 3?
I think it's 3.
And so, Seth, you were involved. There's a guy that has a mastermind, Kent Clothier. You were involved with a mastermind with Kent. And this is one of these ninja groups, right? You know, all the 100 house a year guys and stuff. And you came to a class. I never will forget. This was a live class. We hadn't done live classes. I mean, we've done live classes. They're just virtual, right? And we've really made that work. But I never will forget, you sat on the front row, and I just remember, Seth, watching your eyes light up.
It was you. It was Dallas when we met for the first time, and you brought some things to light in regards to passive income. That's the whole reason I'm in the business. And you showed some other opportunities to really speed up the passive income wealth game. And so as soon as you were done talking, I got on the calendar. I think it was 3 weeks later. You were in my backyard in Sacramento. So that's where I was.
Yeah. Seth, I have trained a lot of high volume real estate investors, at least a couple of hundred, maybe 300, right? That have all come to a class. And you're a big operator. I mean, you do almost 200 deals a year. I mean, that's a lot. And you've got an active real estate brokerage business on top of it. You got a rental portfolio. You got a lot of spinning plates, right?
We do. Last year, we closed 172 transactions across the board. You know, we analyze each deal as it comes in and decide what we want to do with it. Do we want to keep it as a rental, flip it, wholesale it? You know, but the cool thing is we get the access. I think the reason we're in this is because we get the access to decide, do we want to keep this thing for wealth building long term?
Yeah. The reason I love your story so much, Seth, is because, yes, I've trained a lot of high volume real estate investors. I would say that Note School would have the reputation of being the creative finance guys in the business, right? I'm not saying there's not others. I'm not disrespecting anybody else, but certainly we've had more of a lineage of high volume real estate investors come through our training circle than anybody, right?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And one of the things that happens, Seth, is if a lot of people that would be watching this podcast, Seth, you're a hero to them. And I'm saying that not in a funny way. And, you know, you shouldn't be embarrassed. You are an exception, Seth. You're a young guy. You're less than 40 years old. You bought 175 houses last year in California. We're not talking about in Columbus, Ohio. In California, you've got a real estate brokerage business. You got a rental portfolio. And I think this is right, Seth. You have probably grown your net worth between $1 million and $2 million per year since you joined us, adding creative financing.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. There's been some opportunities that we were able to take down that were very substantial in a net worth increase through the opportunity to create notes that were very lucrative, had extremely quick pay downs, cash flowed nicely. We were, yeah, you nailed it on the head.
The point being, if you're a smaller operator, you and I can see any of those guys adding creative financing for the obvious reasons, right? The ninjas have done really better since the virus. The smaller guys have generally not done as well. Is that a true statement?
I would agree with you. We've seen our business increase substantially, but we've seen some obstacles for some folks I help that are smaller, and they're struggling right now. Yeah.
So they got to get the juice out of the lemon, and that means they got to go utilize better leads, right?
Yeah.
So here you're one of the you're a ninja, right? You're the north of 100 house a year guy that Ninja Real Estate Investor heard, right? You're certainly in the top 300 house buyers in the whole United States, probably in the top, honestly, probably 150, right? And that's hard for you to go add this because you're making so much money right now. You're doing so well. It's like, it's hard, particularly a young guy. I'm gray haired, right? I think old. I laugh and say, Seth is a young guy that thinks like an old man.
This was really a challenge. To be frank, it was a challenge to implement. The reason I kept fighting with it and going with it is we needed that balance between the rentals and the notes. The notes shoot off a lot higher cash flow. Rentals have their place. You got the pay down, you got the tax advantages, this and that. But you need to diversify, and we'll shoot off $1,200 on a note, but it's a true net number. Whereas you get $1,200 rent, and you're probably getting $600, and so you got to buy a bunch more. And the focus for us has been on the passive income, and the notes have allowed us to, probably double our passive income because it's just there's no fees. It's a true net number. And that's what fascinated me. It was hard, but I kept with it and kept focusing on it until we could implement a repeatable process.
Okay, Seth, I've done case studies for you. I teach case studies in classes, and I've seen you. I've had you on stage at Note Expo, and you've won awards and stuff. And Seth, you got some case studies that you made. Not one. You have a number of case studies that you've made cumulative profit of more than $250,000
per deal.
Per deal.
Like per deal. It's not uncommon. I mean, those don't happen every time, but we'll run into 3 or 4 of those a year where it's a $200,000 payday because we structured it right. And the math is the most fascinating thing. And, folks will get so hung up on a price, or they'll get so hung up on a certain aspect, and we'll give it to them. They'll be, sometimes for a long time I didn't realize this. I don't go in the weeds too much, but they're stuck on 4% interest. Well, I'll just kick it out to 30 years, or we'll do different things that allow us to cash flow and wrap a note and do what you're getting at. And we've made some very nice profits, $200,000 deals there.
Yeah. And you're right, Seth. This is a mindset, people, we get very in a buy low, sell high mentality, right? And we sort of think that's the only way we get paid. And let me say this about when we talk about Seth making over $250,000 on a deal, and we have several deals that are case studies that he's put together for us, not one, like many, where that kind of money was made. That's kind of where you might make, Seth, $20,000 to $40,000 today, and then you get a check. You get a check for $600 or $1,000 for the next 20 years, right?
Every single month.
And I told you this when you started, right? If you will go invest in your future a little bit, you're going to wake up in a couple of years and realize that your future, that long-term income, particularly passive because it's not rental property, right? As you said, you actually get the check. It doesn't go out in overhead and it doesn't go out in brain damage. How many hot water heaters have you had to fix on a house where you own the note on it?
Got a call this morning. I know. Oh, on a note. None. Zero.
But a rental property, you get those calls every day, right?
I literally got a call this morning for a bad water heater.
Yeah. And so that's the reason. And I've seen a lot of landlords transition and stuff. And, but I really think just, I wanted to do a little different interview today. And you were kind of the perfect person to do it. And that is, you've had a vantage point of many different options and you're good at these options, Seth. I don't think there's a hole in your program to speak of. You're good at the brokerage business. You're good at the house buying business. You're a good landlord. You may not love it, but you're actually good at it. I know that the virus stuff has kind of eaten you guys up out there with people just deciding they don't want to pay rent very much, huh?
It's a different animal in California. Yeah, that has had its challenges for sure. I mean, there's a silver lining. We get to buy some houses from frustrated landlords when we do that. But on our own portfolio, we've had some challenges there.
You got a beautiful family. You and your wife, just pretend for a moment. You and your wife are sitting down, and you go off on some kind of excursion, and you say, "Honey, we're going to have a family business meeting for 3 hours. We're just going to talk about our future," right?
Mm-hmm.
Where would notes fit in that conversation?
You know, it's funny. We actually sit down and do this monthly, a conversation similar to this, where we analyze our balance sheet. And one of my favorite things I do with my wife is we've got a lot of notes where we've wrapped them, or some we kept as rentals, or have created a great note with the seller. And so every month we do the pay down, and we sit there and we notch it down. And gosh, there's some, like there's this one, it's principal only $1,500 a month. And so it's whacking off $1,500 every month. And it's been about 2.5 years now for that note. But then we got an 8.5% interest on the wrap, and that thing's paying down like, I don't know, $40 a month. So we're going 1,500 here and 40 here, and we're just seeing the delta.
So you got the seller. I think I know this case study, by the way.
Yeah.
This is where you flipped a lot up front, right? The lady had to have $75,000, and who would figure out where you get it, except she had a house and a lot. You flipped the lot off, and that gave her the $75,000 to go get rid of the IRS problem.
Exactly.
But here's what happened. The seller agreed to 0% interest. So you're paying her $1,500 a month, right?
$265,000 note.
And your principal is going straight down, yet you resold it on a wrap note.
I didn't get it up front either. We sold it for $290.
Now, what's your net income on that deal a month?
So we're at $2,200 a month on the that they pay us, and then $1,500 a month is what we pay her. So we get $700 every month.
But see, guys, listen to what he's saying. He's sawing his principal straight down with when the seller, the burnout landlord, seller sold a house to you, but your amortization, Seth, at the end is I believe it's 14 years. This loan's going to be totally paid off to the seller. When the guy that sold, the lady that sold it to you, her loan's going to be fully paid off. Correct. In 14 years, you will have collected a principal reduction on your wrap note after you pay off the first, and your loan now becomes officially a first. You're going to have solved the principal off 15%.
Oh, we do the math on it. So I believe we've got a payoff on that thing at year 15, and there's a $220,000 balance left, and we owe nothing. Those get me excited because every month we sit there and we do the math, and it's a little tedious, but it takes us about an hour, and we dive into all this. But seeing each property, and now you start accumulating. I think we have 10 notes now, and another 4 in escrow. We're ramping that up, and just seeing them all pay down rapidly is very exciting.
All right, I'm going to take a little break. We're going to talk about our one-day class, which is essentially about how you started with us, right? Somebody comes and we don't know what we don't know, Seth. No matter how seasoned you were, you didn't know some of these ideas until you go spend a little time with us and go see what's possible. This one-day class does a dang good job of that. We'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. It is Brian with the teaching team here at Note School, and I'm excited that I get to be the one to invite you to the upcoming Gold in Notes class. That's right. It is a one-day deeper dive class that we call Gold in Notes because of how valuable this time spent is. This is a full day that we really get to dig into the nitty-gritty, the whole world of creative financing, not just how to acquire more deals, how to get access to more capital, how to defer a lot of the taxes for us as well as for the sellers that we're talking to, and really learn how to create your own notes. And really, once you learn how to create your own notes, this is really where we spend an entire afternoon really pulling back the curtain on what the note business is, from wholesaling notes, buying and holding performing notes to really build your wealth. I'll even show you a strategy called partials, which is by far the best wealth building tool I've ever seen in the real estate space. And we're definitely going to spend some time talking about non-performing notes, which is by far the biggest opportunity in today's marketplace, solely because of the events that have happened over the past couple of years. This is when people are not paying their mortgages, and we're going to make a lot of big money from these bad debts, and we're going to help a lot of people get a second chance. It's an absolutely fantastic day. Come spend a day really digging and discover a lot of this stuff so that you too can start building your wealth. It's a day meant to really be engaging. Bring your questions, bring your comments, bring your business problems, and we will see you there.
Remember that, Seth?
Yes, I do.
And so really I describe our industry as finding voids in an on fire market, right?
Correct.
I would guess, Seth, that a very high percentage of people that you've gotten to agree to carry terms have had a rent property. And then you've gotten them to carry terms because, quite honestly, the landlording kind of beat them up.
All but one have been rentals. And generally, they're just not good at it. And they're either too nice, or they don't make enough repairs, or they just got some bad luck with a handful of tenants back to back, and they're just done. It's usually a real estate problem, not necessarily a financial problem. They're just tired of the asset.
Most small landlords are not good at managing. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. I mean, it's shocking when you try to acquire the data from them, like a lease agreement, background check. They don't have them. I mean, it's like a handshake deal with a guy who's a professional tenant, we call them, and they get into these properties and then they don't pay rent. And when we go to ask for, hey, did you run their credit? Where do they work? They don't even know. It's kind of sad but they're burnt out, and so they just want us to fix their problem.
One of the things you've done really well is something that I really made a point of teaching, and you've been a great student at this, is understanding their tax angle.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is probably 90% of the sales we buy. They're very concerned about capital gains. And the conversation just hovers around that. So,
because you live in California.
It's nasty.
And they bought a house 5 years ago, and even though they suck as a landlord, the real estate values have jumped up.
It's double. And so they're sitting here with a $50,000 tax problem that they don't want. And so usually I can identify a terms seller in our conversation before we even talk about terms, because they're so concerned about the tax.
So you focus the conversation on there's a tax angle, not a conversation that starts out with, you got to carry terms for me.
Oh, absolutely. We dive into it, and I really unpack. We start with figuring out if they sold it outright, what the tax is going to be. I go, all right. So say I give you 200 grand, and you bought it for 100, but you depreciated this, and well, you're going to pay a tax on $125,000 gain. And we start doing the math, and they see that they're writing a check to the IRS for 35 grand. They're not excited. Then we back into, I got another option.
All right. So Seth, I love this story because you're a guy that runs a big volume shop. That means you or your acquisition team sits in front of a lot of customers.
8 people a day.
8 a day. So this is a very common thread. The most common solicited list that any house buyer chases are landlords, correct? By far. Because we know they have as you called it, a real estate problem. And no matter what is happening and their real estate is escalated in value, the fact that the wife won't speak to them anymore has kind of become a problem, right? About the rental house.
Oh, tremendous. They haven't spoke to the tenant in 4 months. And then it's wild how many people are actually scared to confront and talk to the tenant about them not paying rent, and they avoid the situation at all costs. Or you've got a wife that's just done. The one we recently did, she actually drove it across the finish line for us. I mean, he was trying to bicker back and forth, and then there's a pause, and we hear him on the phone, and then he takes our deal. So we know what happened. She was in the background telling them, sell that damn house.
So you're one of the people that helped me figure this out. And I've gotten the joy of training a lot of guys, and I have worked with a lot of the negotiation specialists that train acquisition guys from many of the biggest volume guys in the business. And this became the light, right? The number one reason that a landlord doesn't sell, a frustrated burnout landlord, but the reason that they don't sell was their fear of paying taxes.
Absolutely.
And so it becomes the obvious pitch to say, there's a way that you can defer your taxes over a long period of time. When you say that to them, what do they say?
It's generally, they follow up with, what do you mean? I said, well, we talked about that $35,000 tax bill. You don't got to pay that up front. Let me unpack this. And then you've got their interest. But it's generally as simple as they go, what do you mean? And they haven't heard it. So they're trying to figure out, what do you mean I don't have to pay the capital gain?
So Seth, in the circle you and I run in, everybody's heard of installment sales. I mean, virtually anybody that's been around this space for, call it 10 years, we all know that seller financing, the IRS allows this landlord to basically pay his taxes as he collects the money. In other words, you could stretch your taxes out over 20 years.
Correct.
And that's as common as the sky being blue today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not common to them.
You're 100%. They've never heard it. But they also don't do installment sales every day. So their accountant wouldn't think to call and tell them that. No, but the moment they call the accountant, he goes, well, yeah, you can do that every single time.
What do I tell you about the accountants, Seth? Huh? What do I tell you?
Oh, gosh.
When you come up with a creative idea, they're like, oh, well, you could do that.
Thanks for all and then they charge you for that conversation.
Exactly.
Oh, geez.
Seth, I want to round this out because this is the most important part. I love your mind because I said you're a young guy that thinks like an old guy. You are clearly focused on trying to build net worth and not just make transactional money, right? You're focused on the things. You're not a high flyer. You don't drive a Ferrari. You could, but you drive a pickup like old Eddie does. And you wear cowboy boots like old Eddie does. And but I want to talk to you. I want to talk about what you see your transition in business being in the next 10 years. What is that? Because of now knowing all the components, what's the next 10 years look like?
Well, we're building out a pretty large infrastructure of, I've got to date 15 folks in the office going on appointments. The vision is to get to a point where I'm simply analyzing all deals that come in. And the number one reason that we have the whole operation is for wealth building. The flipping game's fun. The income there is fun. But the real magic, I'll fight like tooth and nail. I'll spend an exhaustive amount of time to get $1,000 that's recurring, repeatable. And so over the next 10 years, the vision for me is between the rentals and the notes. I want to analyze the best deals that we can keep in our portfolio and turn into a note or a creative finance deal with the seller or a rental. One of those three options. Really, I want my time spent on analyzing everything that comes through the door so we can continue to build that wealth.
And probably some creative financing on virtually every one of those strategies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can buy, rentals on creative finance that pay down dramatically, or the notes where you create a note with a seller and then wrap it. That's a phenomenal tool. Or you buy something and sell it on a note. We do a lot of those in the Midwest right now, and we have good success with that. And so the focus that for me is instead of over the next 10 years, I'll be going towards the wealth build instead of the day-to-day buy. And I just want to analyze the deals that'll give us the best opportunity for passive income.
That's awesome. Parting words. What would you say to somebody that maybe hasn't made it quite over the hill as far as you have? What words of wisdom would you share with them?
Oh, it's all about the education. I think there's a vision, a plan. I would get simple and pick one lane and really dive into it. I went to Eddie's one-day course because I knew there was something important when I heard him speak, but then I needed to learn more. The one-day course gave me a phenomenal picture of what's going on. Now, I had to dive in after that and learn some more, but it really helped me build out that picture of where it could go. And I think you just have to start with one. I think there's a lot of paralysis with, I don't know everything. The best way to learn is to actually do a deal. And so you got to get in the weeds and you got to go out there and negotiate with the seller and try to take one of these down. And you're going to learn a tremendous amount. And so for me, it's getting in those courses, getting in the education, constantly learning more, but implementing what you learn. Go out there and screw it up. It's okay. It's every time I screw up, it's not a bad thing. So don't be afraid of that.
That's great. If you guys want some information about how to get started with us, noteschool.com/TV. And that's going to give you some next steps, kind of alluded to what Seth was talking about. Seth, I truly, really appreciate you. I appreciate just the wisdom that I think you share. You're a young guy that has lived well, doing well in business. And I appreciate you. You have a very good work-life balance. There's a lot of really cool things that Seth does where he has his most important clearly is his family, and he's good at that, and he's good at creating a separation with that. But you've been a good friend to Note School, and you've inspired a lot of people, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm grateful for what you guys have given me. You actually helped tremendously with that family piece. The whole reason we do this is the freedom to go and do other stuff. And a lot of what Note School has given me is the freedom to go and spend time with family while the income's still coming in. And I am grateful for that. And you guys have had a tremendous impact on me.
Thank you, Seth Choate. You're awesome.
Eddie, see you soon.